In 2016, the people of Britain were presented with a massive decision that had the potential to transform an entire country. The country chose to leave the EU, for better or for worse. And we now dwell in this transitional period, a period of uncertainty, a period of doubt, and a period of questions. What happens if we leave? Was the referendum final? Why is there such controversy surrounding this topic? These questions were what I endeavoured to answer in this documentary. This is Brexit, without prejudice. I had got an intel of an anti-Brexit rally taking place in Exeter, and I'd got in contact with a couple of people from Bath for Europe who had kindly agreed to allow me to travel to and from the rally with them. I saw this as an opportunity to get to know the Bath for Europe ethos and where they stood on the Brexit debate.
Bath for Europe is a non-politically aligned organisation of people who are really concerned about Brexit and the impact it's going to have on our country. We're campaigning to get a meaningful vote on the deal. It's actually going to be really, really damaging for our country, and it's not the right thing for our future.
So you do think the second vote would prove a different result to the first?
I think it would, because as I said, I think it's become much clearer how damaging it's going to be. If it doesn't, then obviously I think I would have to accept that that is the will of the people.
Darling, you got to let me know.
So this is Tim. He let us up into his apartment to get some shots of the rally from up here. Being sort of living here and having this go on outside his window.
It's quite interesting seeing it all come and literally be right outside your door. You can hear the cheers and everything from outside. I don't actively follow it too much, but it is quite inspiring to see how these people come together for a cause that they quite deeply believe in. When you're not exposed to these points of views, it's quite interesting to have it brought to you. Admittedly, I'm in a position where it might come to me a lot more than other people, but it's still good that they're getting the message out.
They voted, as you know, like we voted in the referendum and we voted to leave, and now they're protesting to sort of stay, sort of democratically. What does that sort of suggest to you?
People are perfectly entitled to change their minds, as long, in my opinion, it's just best to keep your mind open to things. So you want to be able to objectively evaluate what's going on around you. Ideally make up a decision by yourself, not just be told or listen to your family. Figure it out for yourself.
I was immediately struck by how one word, Brexit, can divide a country entirely whilst also uniting it. Okay, so I'm at the rally at the moment. Everybody is getting quite loud, they're getting quite rowdy, they're showing their support, holding their banners high. We've got a range of stuff going on, lots of people coming asking questions about it all. There's a talk going on at the moment, and it keeps bouncing back to Nigel Farage and stuff that's already happened. I think that these people are very much caught up in the past. They're quite bitter. You get this feeling of bitterness. Whenever anyone contradicts them, they sort of bite their hand off. I think that's really interesting. What do you think democracy to be?
I think democracy is an ongoing process, and particularly when anything else wins by such a thin margin, then we have the right to see what the actual deal is, rather than piling together everything from, say, exactly the same deals with only our own name on the bottom. Doesn't matter what deal we get at the end of it, some of those people are going to be very disappointed.
So just in 100 words or less, why is Brexit such a bad move?
Because of all the major problems in this world, the vast majority are regional problems, not national ones. We're surely going to have a better solution to those by addressing them at the regional level, rather than pulling up the drawbridge and waiting until they're hammering at the gates.
The whole experience had been an eye-opener, to say the least. I'd managed to talk to all sorts of people, each one with his or her individual viewpoints over Brexit. I think the term Brexit is too often misattributed to having political connotations, as from what I've seen today, the truth appears to be that it is a matter of personal conviction over one of political outlook. I had just begun my journey into discovering the effect of Brexit on the people of Britain, yet already I was beginning to understand that it was not the effect on the people, it was the effect on the person. Whilst at the rally, I'd met the Liberal Democrat representative for Bath, Vera Hobhouse, and thought it vital that I catch up with her in a more professional environment.
I'm Vera Hobhouse, I'm the MP for Bath. Staying in the EU is one of my big campaigning goals when we lost the referendum in 2016. I personally felt I couldn't stop here and just let it happen.
Okay, but say that Brexit was inevitable. What would the best outcome be for the Liberal Democrats?
Well, I simply don't buy yet that Brexit is inevitable. And I don't believe that there's such a thing as a hard Brexit or a soft Brexit. A Brexit is a Brexit. We will be outside the single market, the customs union. We will have very little access. So currently I'm just fighting to make sure we stay in the EU, and I believe it's the people who should make that decision. Because when the original referendum was held, so many things were unclear. People didn't know a lot of things of what the implications of Brexit would actually be. People should have the right to change their mind. Give the people the right to change their mind if that's what they want to do. Ask them. If they confirm the referendum decision in 2016, fine, but ask them.
Vera definitely showed her passion for the EU. However, to say that she was pessimistic about Brexit would be an understatement. Also, sometimes she did divert the questions away from what I was asking. She didn't quite get the point that I was trying to kick home about democracy, for example. And some of the points she made weren't irrelevant, but they weren't quite answering the questions I had set to her. I began to wonder how Brexit had affected people more close to home. I wondered how it had affected my family. Therefore, I decided to put some questions to my brother, Daniel, about Brexit. So Dan, what were your initial impressions of Brexit?
I was extremely pro-Brexit at first.
Could you talk to us a little bit about why that was?
I think in the UK especially we need stricter immigration rules and border control, and one of the only ways to accomplish that would to be independent from the EU.
So why are you putting the emphasis on tight border control? What do you think immigrants take away from Britain?
Well, end of the day, we have to pay more tax every day to provide for people that don't even contribute anything to Britain's society. I feel like the vast majority of immigrants do remain unsettled. In some drastic cases, they benefit off our welfare system, then return to their own country where they'll sort of live life and fund for their family from the money that they've got off British people's tax. I think the system was put in place. It's a national system. It should provide for British people over people from Europe.
Okay, so to go back to that point about immigration, you're very anti-immigration as just sort of where you stand. So talk to us a little bit about that.
I feel like there are too many immigrants in the UK.
So what restrictions would you put in place to control the influx of immigrants into the UK?
I know this will sound slightly radical to most people, but I do strongly believe that I think we should deport every immigrant that isn't working currently. We have a duty of care for our own country, and until we get that sorted out, we can't expect to be funding other countries and protecting their people when it's their job to.
Okay, well then, I suppose let's just all be thankful that we don't have Daniel in control of our borders, if you'll forgive me saying. But Daniel, also you are a very small person in a very small country, and you don't have that authority to make those sort of decisions.
It's not a small country.
It is yes, but you are a small person.
I'm not doing this interview. I'm not doing this. Fuck this. You've been patronising the whole
Look,
time.
I have a couple more questions. Let's just.
Well, no, we'll call it quits there, I think.
No, because you need to understand that you can't make these decisions for the country. That's why we're a democracy. Needless to say, Dan had some very controversial points to make about Brexit, and it soon became not a question of Brexit, but a question of his own moral compass.
There are three main reasons why we want to leave. The first is sovereignty. It means that we here in Britain decide what our futures are. It should be we in Parliament who decide that. And the second is to do with money. At the moment we are paying a very large amount of money, a net figure of £350 million a week or thereabouts, to the European Union. I think that money should be spent by the Chancellor of the Exchequer in his budgets in Parliament rather than by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. And the third is the law. At the moment, European law, the European Court of Justice, can override what we decide here in Parliament or in the British courts. And I think that's just wrong. I think that actually we in Britain should be deciding our own futures, not be kowtowing to the European courts. For 3 reasons, therefore. There are others, of course. Controlling our own immigration is one. Getting rid of lots of the useless regulation that we get from the European Union.
So how do you think the Brexit negotiations are going so far?
Well, they're steady. They're very steady. They're not dramatic. They're not exciting. They're going in the right direction. I think Theresa May is actually doing a rather good job at getting it sorted out. Of course, the Remainers are extremely disappointed all round because they didn't want to leave. And I remember when I was in business being taught that a good sign of a good business deal is that both sides are a little bit unhappy. So I think probably we're just about the right place here. Neither side is crowing, neither side is jubilant.
So do you think that a referendum on the deal or a second referendum would be insulting to democracy?
I think insulting to democracy is exactly the right way of putting it. You can't say, oh crumbs, we've lost the general election, we better have a second general election in order to try and win it. You have to accept what the people tell you, even if you don't like it. Incidentally, if we did have such a referendum, and if they voted no, all that would then happen would be that we'd still leave the European Union, but it'd be without the deal which had been agreed. So there's no possibility whatsoever of reversing the decision to leave, either in a referendum or indeed in Parliament. We will be leaving the EU, no question about that whatsoever.
My interview with James Gray had finally provided me with that pro-Brexit argument. His optimism and his support surrounding Brexit was truly admirable, as was his progressive attitude towards a country he loves. Having discussed Brexit with a variety of British citizens, I still felt that my perspective on the topic was still somewhat restricted. I began to try to fathom how Brexit policies might and could affect foreign EU citizens living in my hometown, Warminster.
Hi, I'm Christoph, 34-year-old. I'm a head chef, live in UK for 30 years almost.
The referendum result was a while ago. How are you feeling about Brexit now?
Lots of things going on at the moment. Nobody knows what will bring.
Has Brexit impacted any of your family in your lives or your jobs?
You know, for the people being a long time, doesn't impact too much. Maybe the people who wants to come now or they come last year or after, they will don't get the security like we have. The people been here too long, or like 14 or over there.
What do you think the UK government can do to support EU citizens in the UK?
I don't know actually. You know, they need to maybe give more information what they're going to do. Well, you know, they don't know what's happened when they go out. They have only some plans what they want to do, but we find out after we leave.
What concerns or dreams do you have post Brexit?
What dreams? Hopefully we stay here with my family. My kids will finish education here and they get a good job. They will never say, oh, you have to go back now, after 15 or 10 years, my kids be born here, pretty much nearly half life for me here. I never been on any benefits. Since my first day I was always work, say my wife, we have like 3 or 4, even 4 jobs. And then probably because the immigration, many people come here and they take lots of benefits from different countries, and maybe that's why I don't like. I like to be, if somebody come here, it's supposed to work.
Over the course of this documentary, I had met such a vast variety of people, young and old, radical and moderate, each one putting emphasis on a different aspect of Brexit. From what I've seen, it seems as if the Brexit debate will be one that will be argued over and disputed over for many years to come. As long as Britain as a country remain optimistic in the face of all this uncertainty and keep faith in our political leaders, we can't go far wrong.